Hi, Michelle. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm good, Mickey. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Welcome back, all of our listeners, to Michelle and Mickey's Performance Playbook. I think I always say podcast, but it's actually Playbook is the name of our podcast.
Yeah, as if it matters.
So anyway, it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. So I saw a fantastic reel. I don't know if it was a reel or a video, whatever the difference is, on Instagram of Moana and yourself doing pull-ups. And I would love to know the backstory of like how that came about. Was Moana like aiming for this, or it's just kind of a whim? Give me the.
Yeah, so it was funny. She came home from work yesterday. She works down at the mall at a pretzel shop. And she just like walked up to the pull bar and started doing pull-ups. Or really, she's doing chin-ups. Like
That's
she goes,
amazing.
I can't do them with
Yeah.
her
Okay.
hands, sort of facing forward, but with her
Over.
hands turned around, she can do chin-ups. And then she told me just out of the blue. So like this was complete. It completely came from her, where she said, "I've been trying to do some pull-ups every day," and she goes, "I'm up to eight." And I'm like, "What? You can do eight pull-ups?" And then I'm
That's
thinking,
awesome.
"There's no." I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "She's little and skinny," because on my brain is like rationalizing, like, how in the world,
Wow.
is she doing eight pull-ups? I'm like, well, maybe because she weighs like 105 pounds, and maybe she's a little more than that. But anyway, yeah, I just thought it was really cool. And so I was like, hold on. And so it was very like off the cuff, spur of the moment, where I said, hang on, let me just go get a video of that because I just thought it was cool. And she goes, well, I just did a bunch, so I don't know if I can do, a whole bunch more. And I'm like, well, just try, just do a few and it's fine. So she did three. And then I didn't even think it through. I was like, okay, let me see if I honestly haven't done a pull up probably all year, but like I used to be really strong. I used to do pull ups
Yeah.
a lot. And but it's been a while. So I was more like just curious if I could even do one still. And I knew I had a video camera on me, so I was like, all right, well, let me just see. So I
Yeah.
managed to do
Show up.
three. I mean, they were kind of slow, but like I got my chin up over the
Yeah.
bar three
They're
times, and I
good.
was like kind
Yeah.
of proud. Yeah. And then it was very spur of the moment. I don't even know why I decided to put it on Instagram. Like it wasn't like well thought out. I mean, honestly, from the time that Mona said, I am practicing these chin ups to me videotaping to me making the reel and getting up was a span of probably 10 minutes, right? Like this
Yeah.
wasn't something that I
Right.
was like, let me like plan this all ahead and think, whatever. I just kind of thought that it was cool. And I thought some people might be inspired, right? Like just to
And
like watching sort of
yeah.
mother daughter do pull-ups together.
Yeah. And by the way, I think this is like this is how social media used to be, right? At least it wasn't curated. It wasn't like to get likes or to get, right? Like we used to just like put stuff off the cuff. And you still do that. I've basically stopped posting anything on social media and contemplate deleting it daily. But I like seeing that kind of stuff that's like not, thought out with the lighting and right to have like,
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
just
It
like the
was
off the
not
cuff, right?
curated
Like
in
that's,
any way at all.
great.
Like
It's great.
literally,
Right.
and making a reel with like two short videos that were each about
Right.
like 10 seconds long, is a really easy thing,
Right.
to do. And, and honestly, I was only just going to put it on my story. And so when I posted it, I don't totally understand how this works, but like I went and I made it and then I said remove from main grid, right? So like if you go to my Instagram page, like it doesn't show up, but I guess if you go to like the Reels page, it shows up. But like this is
Interesting.
another thing about Instagram too. So like just by the way, I feel like every time I post reels on Instagram, like, I don't know if either Instagram doesn't show it to very many people, or if there are people who are watching it, like hardly any of my friends will interact with my videos at all, right? Like they don't hit like, they
Yeah.
don't
No,
comment,
I
they
know.
don't like, which I find
Yeah.
really interesting. So I'm like, I don't know if they're like afraid to interact with it, if they don't want to interact with it, if they don't even see it. Like, I don't know, but like, I also try to like not worry about it at all.
Not,
It just,
yeah.
it is what it is and whatever. Moana's generation is very different. And I learned that because I tagged Moana in it, right?
And
Like
there
in
it
our
like
video.
exploded. Yeah.
Oh my God. Like all of her friends were, like, I got a whole bunch of, like a bunch of her friends then like started following me, which then I was asking her later, I'm like, who's this person? Cause none of them like go by their names, right? Like they all just have like
Right.
handles that you would not know who it is. And
Right.
so anyway, yeah,
Back in
I
the
kind of
way
thought it was
things
funny
used to
that
be. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, like so
Yeah.
when her friends started to like it and comment on it, and then like Instagram was like, oh, we have to show this to all of Mona's friends, and like they're very interactive, and so it's kind of like the more they interacted with it, the more Instagram showed it to people, and then Instagram this morning was like, your reel got over 1,000 views, and I'm like, I provide in my mind, like way more valuable content, especially like these little clips like these. And I'm like, this is
I
valuable
know.
stuff, you guys. Instagram doesn't show it to
Why?
anybody because like two people will like it and
No,
no one will interact with it,
I
like
know.
whatever. And like then you do this dumb video where we're like doing a couple of pull-ups like as
Right.
a joke. Like it just was like, and everybody's like, woo.
Well, and I don't remember when I liked it because, I will admit, like, I don't think Instagram shows me a lot of my friends' stuff, like, or it'll show me way late, like a week later or 2 weeks or a month later, even. I'm like, okay, that was like a month ago. I don't know. And so all I see, honestly, is like political content and dog rescue or dog abuse videos, which the dog abuse videos are like heart wrenching. And so, anyways,
Yeah.
yeah, we yeah. So I commented. I don't remember if I did. I comment on that. It was a goal
Yeah,
and I
you kind of
failed.
like
I think I
this is
did.
the thing. Like it was
Very,
so interesting because then, like, as soon as people start liking it and a couple people comment, then it's like Instagram wants to just show it to everybody. So it's kind of like, wow, if people comment more on like high
yeah,
content that's actually valuable, then like that would get spread too. But
right.
apparently, that's not
I
enough.
know.
But
Yeah,
yeah, people like I think that people were inspired, and I think I was surprised at how inspired people were just like watching a mother daughter both
that's
do
yeah.
a couple of pull ups, and
Well, I
I don't
was
know.
I was inspired myself because my one of my goals for 2025 was to do a pull-up. And I haven't tried in a long time, but further away than when I set that goal at the end of 2024, early 2025. So I thought this was a good prelude into our discussion topic of year-end goal setting. But because right now everyone's like starting, it's not everyone, I shouldn't say everyone, there's a lot of people that are also checking out right for the holidays and taking their break, and they're not really setting goals or anything, and that's totally fine. Like, I encourage people to take the break if you need it. But I also have seen some athletes already like talking about next year, goal setting for next year, what do we need to do different for next year. And I'm like, that's great too, love talking about that. But like, let's put a stop sign up, and before we go down that route, let's talk about how did 2025 go? What goals did you set? Do you even remember what goals you set? If you set goals, not I don't encourage people don't have to set goals, right? Or set New Year's resolutions, right? But if they did, or they had general goals for the year, like how'd it go? Did you meet them? Did you not? And then, of course, the hard part is like, why not, right? Why did you not, meet your goal? And so, yeah. So for my own, I'll just use myself as an example. I think, why am I farther away now? Well, I didn't get into my home gym. Like, I literally didn't practice. So I feel like I was
Let
pretty
me ask you a
strong. I've
question.
always
So
been,
like
yeah,
this is right up my alley too, right? To be like,
yeah,
all right, let's dig in, Mickey. So like
yeah.
this would be a little demonstration for folks. So Mickey, do you have a pull up bar?
I do. I do. I have bands. I
And
have
when's like
everything.
yeah, and how like accessible is it? Like where is it in relation to like your house, your kitchen, your
So it's
bedroom?
it's a great question, because right now, yeah, you're right. It is out in my well, right now, very cold workout little room. It's like I have a little room off my garage, which is not really, it has a little heater, but it's pretty cold. So it's not like, I think yours was in like in a stairwell or something, right? And I've thought about where could I put it that's like between a doorway that I could just, I pass through, 10 times a day, to make it more accessible. So
Hmm.
it has not been a problem in the past to get over there and do what needs to be done, but this year it didn't happen. So
Hmm.
accessibility
Yeah,
is
it's
a
like
huge,
making
like,
yourself
how,
go there.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's a great, it's one of the things I always ask athletes that I'm working with too, is like, well, how easy is it to do those? But I will also preface this. It's not that hard to walk from my house to my garage, right? To do a
It's
few
not, but
pull-ups.
I mean, but sometimes that genuinely like is the
It's true.
barrier, to like getting
Yeah.
started. For a lot of people, once you get started, it's fine and easy to keep going, right?
Yep.
But it's like that whole,
Yep.
I mean, isn't that like one of the laws or something? There's a law about like the object in motion stays in motion and the
Stays in
object at
motion.
rest stays at rest. And so like, it's like the gaining the
What's your
momentum to get
activation? Yeah.
started and go is the hardest part of all of it. So
Yeah.
then like removing whatever barriers there might be, like, that would make it even harder to go get started would be
Right.
like potentially a step. But I would even go back further than that. What's your history with pull ups? Just like over
So
your
I used
lifetime?
to be, yeah, over my lifetime, like when I was in high school, Moana's age, yeah, I could do, I don't know, probably 10, 15, like
Hmm.
I was pretty strong. I would say I could probably do that ish through my 20s because I got into rock climbing, and so I was pretty strong upper body. And then let's see, 30s, like after PhD, not maybe, the most in shape. Well, and I put on weight too, and that makes it a lot harder. I mean, I was strong, very strong, but like doing a pull up, if you have a lot of lower body mass and it's not proportionally weight, it's harder. Um, So I think when I was training, so I did a lot of TIAs, group training. I did train with her one on one for a while, my early 40s. And so let's see, when I like the height of racing, I would say I could do chin ups. Could not do pull ups, so like mid 30s, right, to late 30s, I could do chin ups, probably like five ish, maybe on a good day eight. Train with Tia into my early 40s, and we got back to being able to do chin ups, a couple on like two unassisted, maybe like 10 with a light band or something like that. And I have like the whole protocol of like where to start, how to progress. Like I have a
Yeah.
lot of knowledge around pull-ups.
It's never not knowing what to do. Like
No,
the
no,
reason
it
why
is
we
just
don't do the
doing
thing
it.
is never because I just didn't know what I was
Yeah.
supposed to do. Like that's never
Yeah. No,
the
no.
issue.
I know what I need to do. I know what I need to do. And so, but what I would say, and I always ask this too, is like it's what's the barrier, right? Momentum. I call it activation energy. Like my activation energy was not, well, how do I describe this? Like it was too high for the need at the time, right? There wasn't a driver of like why do I was like, oh, I thought it'd be cool to do some pull-ups, right? Like it's cool. And I'm like I'm not racing, and so it's just something to focus on. But that wasn't enough for me, right? And I think sometimes it's not enough for a lot of people, right? Like I want to do, I don't know, like, or I want to cut out alcohol, right? Like why, right? Hopefully people are seeing the benefits of cutting out alcohol or exploring their relationship with alcohol. So maybe that's not a great example, but I mean, pull-ups is a great example because it's like, oh, it's kind of fun and it's cool, right? So, but there's really not like a super high need. Like doing pull-ups does not help me split more wood. It does not help me load more wood when I'm bringing in wood for the fire, right? Like even picking up my dogs who are 110 and 70 pounds, like doing pull-ups doesn't really, like deadlifting helps with that, right? So I think there was like a lack of need or a driver, right, to get that activation energy lower to go and do it for me. And so I'm not sure, like if it will remain
Yeah.
on
So
my,
so
yeah,
where we go with that is maybe it's along the lines of like making sure that the goal that you choose is meaningful enough for you to actually have a real desire to pursue. Right. That
right.
like that, because one of the questions that is important to ask in pick the scenario, right? All of these is like, what would it mean about you if you could do five pull-ups? Right. And so you could answer that. Like, so Mickey, if you could do five pull-ups right now, what would it mean about you?
I have to say nothing. Like it
Right.
means,
And so like, and yeah.
right,
And so genuinely,
right,
like some people would be like, oh, it would mean that I'm, like I'm as strong as I want to be, or like for some
right.
people,
I
it
know.
would mean something if you could do five pull-ups. But if to you, it
Like,
would not materially change my life like at all in any way, then you're like,
right,
all right, well then that
right.
particular goal for you is not going to be a very effective one because like there's not a
I
really good
know.
why behind it.
No.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I
I
think for
think
me,
if any,
like straight up just bragging rights, like if I could do three pull-ups, like super, that's cool. Like, but I actually
yeah,
also don't care. Like, I
yeah,
don't care that much. I like to be
right.
strong though, and I like to look
Yeah.
strong.
Right. Well, and so there's, I think that is, I mean, it does tie into, I can't say I don't care at all because as we also talked about before we started recording, like I threw out my back a couple weeks ago because I have not been doing strength work and I have not been doing my mobility and my yoga. And so that component, it is a much more important driver, right? It's important to me. I want to be able to hike strong and run, and cycle and help my dogs, lift my dogs, right, well into my, as long as possible, 80s, 90s, right? And so in order to do that, I have to take care of the strength now because it just gets harder as we get older. It's not impossible, but we're never going to be, people say that I'm depressing when I say this, but like today's the youngest we're ever going to be today, this moment, right? And we can improve our health though, right? But in terms of the aging process is also real, that's physics, but we can still improve our health. And so I think being strong is a core value, right? And it's not only just that, but I've also realized it's a necessity for where I live. Like not being able to walk because you threw out your back I can't bring wood in, I can't walk my dogs. I live very remote. Everything becomes very, very difficult very quickly. That's not okay. So so I think for next year, right, I can start to hone in on it's a pain point, right? Like it's very painful. It limits me significantly. And so if I can draw on that, like you don't want that to happen, therefore you need to do you need to do the bare minimum strength work and mobility work to keep yourself in alignment. I think it's
Hmm.
kind of going to be a much bigger driver, right? And activation and allow the activation energy to come down so that I go out and do what I need to do. Or I'll get a pull-up bar
Yeah.
and move it into my house. Yeah.
But like, if we
Yeah.
go back to say, like, let's talk about the mobility piece, right? The mobility and movement. Like for me, and so I'm curious, like how you would answer this question, but like for me, I think because I work too with a lot of older athletes and some of them in person too, like, right. Like I see them at
Hmm.
masters,
Yeah.
see them around. And I see that a major limiter of an older athlete is mobility, right? And it limits their ability to get into physical positions that are necessary for like aerodynamic bike riding or
Hmm.
hip extension when running or your streamlined position off the walls when you're swimming and like those like the actual shapes and positions that our bodies need to be in for efficient movement in the things that
Hmm.
like I personally like to do. And I see, yeah, like you just watch like restrictions come about with these older people. And then you also see, or I see, declining strength. So if you're looking at sort of like what is the biggest difference between like the 40-year-old athlete and the 65-year-old athlete, like in a big picture sense, most of the time it comes down to mobility and strength. And so
Absolutely.
these would
Yeah.
be things that like a 40-year-old athlete might take for granted, right? Because like so far the 40-year-old athlete hasn't lost a ton of mobility and strength. I mean, some of them have, but like if they're
I
still
have.
actively training,
Yeah.
most of them haven't as much as they could have, right? And they haven't lost as much as the 65-year-old has lost. And so what I would say like my why, if I'm thinking about like when I'm doing my mobility work, and I don't do as much strength work as I'll use the word should. I hate the word should. I don't like doing strength work. I like how it feels after. I
Yeah.
don't like it like doing.
Yeah.
But there is a gym that's about to open up like right down the road from me, and I hate the gym that I had been going to because it's like old and stinky, and I just felt like I always smelled really bad when I left there, and that was like that was like the hump that was hard for me to get over. Like I don't like it's just gross in there. But a
Hmm.
new gym opening up feels better, right? Like that's like
Yeah.
ooh, new equipment, and like it won't be dirty
Yeah.
yet, so I can
Right.
start
Yes.
using that one. But yeah, yeah. But anyway, when I think about my why, it's really easy for me to envision my future self,
Mm.
right? And so to say, like, when there's mobility work that I'm doing or strength work that I'm doing, it's not even for me today or even me
Hmm.
tomorrow. It's me when I'm
Yeah.
60 and me when I'm 65 and me when I'm 70 and who knows how long I'll live. But like I think that it's a major flex to be an older person who is physically strong and mobile and capable. And like, I just think it's a really cool flex because in order to achieve that, it's not something that you can just decide to do and start. I mean,
Yeah. It's
you
like
could
you have to
start when
build
you
it.
were 60 and it would be better than if you didn't start. But to
Right.
be like
Right.
tip top shape at 65, like that's a lifelong of, um,
Hmm.
of work and aiming toward
Yeah.
that thing. And to me, I think of like physical fitness as it, it is. And I hate the word flex because like I don't mean it to be like, oh, the only reason I'm doing it is like to one up other people. It's not necessarily that, but ultimately it ends up being that because so few people follow that path with enough consistency and focus to achieve that level. And people will trade money for that like really easily, right? Like they'll work at a job that is super stressful, but it earns them a lot of money, but it takes up all their time and all their mental energy and they're super drained. And so they have a big giant bank account, but their physical fitness is garbage. And then
Yeah.
like by the time they retire and like now you have all this money but like you're not fit enough to physically
Use it.
enjoy
Yeah.
the world or your life, right, in a way. And so I just think
Yeah.
that it's not like the fitness that I want and I'm trying to develop and maintain and hold on to is not something that can be bought. And I think that that's really cool. It makes me want it more, knowing that like
Hmm.
I have to earn it. The process of like going about that to me is really cool. And I like it. And I think I like it because not that many people do it.
Yeah. Well, it takes a
I mean,
long-term
our peer
vision,
group
right?
does, but like,
Yeah.
yeah, like look
Right.
around the world, you know what I mean? And there aren't that many people that go way out of their way to stay physically fit and strong throughout their like older adult lives.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. No, I
I think
agree.
it's cool. I want to
Hmm.
be able to carry all my
Yeah.
luggage when I'm old, when I'm
Yeah.
traveling. Like, like I
Yeah.
want to still be like totally with it mentally and physically be able to like handle
Hmm.
all my shit. And
Yeah.
so that makes it easy for me then to do the mobility work and the breath work and the things that I know like put me in a position to continue to maintain
Hmm.
like that physical health.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Well, I think it's a lifelong, it's a continual process for me to learn and relearn some of these things because while I feel good, I feel very strong, right? That I'm following my values and in terms of health, right? Like I do meditation and I'm always hiking with my dogs but there's things that I've let go that are not in a line, right? I mean, my values are to also, yeah, be able to be doing the things that I love to do as long as possible and being pretty self-reliant for I mean, the plan is to be here in a remote location as long as possible. And that's going to take, having some strength and some cognitive savviness, into my older years. But yeah, I have to be reminded sometimes, like, especially when throwing a back out, right? Like, yeah, got to take care of this body because it's the only one you got, as cliche as that is.
Hmm.
So yeah. So I think so when you have athletes that are coming to you that are already looking into 2026 and what their big goals are, what is the first, like, do you do a reflection? Like, do you force them to do a reflection? I'm asking because, sometimes goals are totally new, right? Like an athlete comes and they're like, they're maybe they want to transition, from Ironman or whatever, triathlon um to ultras or running races, right? Or a lot of times it's like I'm going to move up from I've been doing 70.3s and now I want to tackle Ironman. What's your protocol? Like, how do you have them? Yeah, what do you do? What do you ask them? You just kind of start. Yeah.
Yeah, like so let me use an example of an athlete that recently came to me with a goal that like my first gut impression was like that's out of reach. Right.
Mm,
Those athletes, right? They
yeah.
come to you
Yeah.
and like they're like, this is what I want to do. Right. And they have this goal that you're like, where they're at right now it's a giant leap. So like
Hmm.
the goal isn't impossible for any human, right? Which means it's not impossible for that human either. But like from where that human is right now to like reaching that goal, there's a big gap. And so commonly what I will do in that situation is ask the athlete, like I'm very careful as a coach in telling an athlete what I think they can and cannot do.
Hmm.
Because like I think
Yeah.
that our role is very important there because it can be very detrimental. If I were to say to an athlete like you, that's impossible, like you're not going to
Hmm.
achieve that or whatever. Like, I mean, that's the type of statement that can live in a person's body and in their tissues and prevent them from ever even taking the first step to do that, right? Like when a
Right.
person of influence says something negative like that. So I'm very careful about predicting what an athlete can or can't do. And when I'm in a situation where the athlete has goals that I'm like, wow, that's a big reach, I'll ask them, what do you think needs to be done? Like, what is
Hmm.
it going to take to achieve that? Right.
Hmm.
And so then, if they say, well, I need to do this or that, I need to, practice more consistently. Okay, so what does that look like? And I'll like keep
Yeah.
drilling down. And the problem with this
Yeah.
process is that it really needs to that it's the kind of conversation that has to take place like verbally, ideally in person, but like, over the phone or over a Zoom call can work. But it's not the kind of thing that gets done really well via writing. Right. And it's not that I don't love writing. Like I am a huge fan of writing, and I think that people should be writing a lot. I think you can learn a lot. What I've found though and realized is that a lot of people don't like really explore much, like when they're writing, like as they're writing, like what they need is then for me to then
Hmm.
cue them to, like, what's the next question there, right? That you have to dig deeper into that particular concept before you just move on and sort of gloss over all the gap that is between, where you currently are and where you want to be. And so I do think that talking this through is key, because it's at that point that you can be asking them the
Hmm.
questions. Then what gets in the way? Like, Nikki, where is your pull-up bar? Right?
Hmm.
Like, because it is always going to be about what gets in the way. And so,
Yeah,
yeah,
I agree.
it has to be like the verbal conversation, and then the coach or the person leading it has to be pretty well versed at continuing to push into the details and digging about what is actually at the root of what's causing the thing to not happen, right? Like, where's the rub? And this is what I will say is potentially quite overlooked by a lot of people, is that the person that you think you are, or that you believe that you are, guides a lot. And when I say that, I mean it like subconsciously. Like, the person that you subconsciously believe that you are, maybe some of it's conscious, but a lot of it is subconscious. Is that person, like, are you living in alignment with that person? And most of the time, the answer is yes, which means that if you're not achieving the goal, like if you're not taking the steps that are required in order to achieve your goal. And like we said before, this is rarely a lack of knowledge, right? Like, if
Hmm.
you want to get to the point where you can do 5 pull-ups, like, the steps that it takes to actually do that thing, right? So it's not a matter of like, I didn't know that I was supposed to practice every day. I didn't know the steps along the way. But if you don't believe that you are the kind of person who can just go pull off 5 pull-ups, right? Then you taking the steps to become that person, like, there's a really big rub there, right? Like, if you don't believe that you're the kind of person that could do a whole Ironman, then, like,
Hmm.
you could put an Ironman on your schedule. But if you don't believe that you're the kind of person who can actually do it, then you're unlikely to take all those steps in between that
Yeah.
start to get you there, right? And I feel like it this can go for absolutely any human goal that someone has. And like, this wouldn't even relate to our audience very much, but hypothetically, just because sometimes it can be good to look at an example that's like far outside of our own realm, because we can
Hmm.
see that very
Hmm.
clearly, right? Sometimes when we're looking at things we're close to, it's sort of clouded by like our own experience or whatever. But like, imagine, like, if you were a smoker and you're trying to quit smoking, like, the best way to do that is it somehow you have to get to this like baseline identity that, like, I'm not a smoker,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Because as long as you're like, I am a smoker and I'm trying to quit, then like your baseline identity is still like, I'm a smoker. And if you're a smoker, then the likelihood of you like going to the gas station and buying a pack of cigarettes are higher than like if you're not a smoker, which, like, I've never been a smoker. I've never walked into a gas station and bought a pack of cigarettes because like my identity doesn't align with being a smoker. Right.
Hmm.
So like, if you don't see yourself as a swimmer, like, I'm not a swimmer, I'm not a water girl. I've heard that so much. I mean, like, that's the most common thing that, like, if a new athlete comes to me, like, almost across the board, it's like, oh, I'm not a swimmer. I didn't grow up swimming. Like, I don't love the water.
Hmm.
I don't, and if like that's who you believe you are, then the chances of you like planning your week around like knowing when the pool is open are like really slim, right? Versus like the ones that come to, like, here's a really great example. The people who see themselves as swimmers, like, at their baseline identity, it's like part of who they are.
Hmm.
Those people come find our master's program within 2 weeks of moving to the island.
Hmm.
Right. And so
Hmm.
like, I
Yeah.
can assess someone really easily when they like walk into our swim practice. They identify me as a coach, probably because like I'm the one carrying the whiteboard. And they walk up and they introduce themselves and they say, I just moved here last week. I found your master's program online. Help me understand how this works. And I'm like, welcome. What's your name? What's your story? And in my mind, I'm like, this is a person who sees themselves as a swimmer because they acted like a swimmer. Like the very first thing
Yeah.
they did was the same thing that like anyone who sees themselves as a swimmer would do, which is like, I'm in a new area. I need to find out where the pools are, what time are the pools open, like what groups are training. And then I need to like take the steps to go, initiate myself into that group. Right. That's not something that a non-swimmer would do. Or like if you at your heart don't believe that you're a swimmer, then in order to make that process happen, having somebody on your side who's saying like, hey, where are the pools in your area? What time are they open? Are there any master's groups? Right. And then that might spur somebody on to, finding that information out, but they still might need this like push from
Hmm.
someone on the outside to help them even get to the point where they would take those steps. And then from there, even those people at some point will have to grapple with this internal notion of who they are as an athlete, right? Like you could be swimming masters for a whole year and still not see yourself as a swimmer. And like, if that's the case, then you're probably like still in developing lanes and not like trying super hard to move your way up. But like, if you see yourself as like, I'm a really good swimmer and I'm in lane 3 here, like what is happening? I should be in lane 1. Like if that's your identity, like I see myself as this person that I'm currently not, then I'm going to take all these steps. I'm going to go way out of my way to make myself become
Hmm.
that person who I believe that I am. And so like my challenge to people who are setting goals that they are not taking steps to actually achieve is to go back to that identity piece of it and like, who do you subconsciously see yourself as right now? Right. And so, and commonly the people that are not taking the actual steps, the people who just say that this is their goal, but then like don't do the things that are required to achieve that goal, then there is an issue likely at the identity level. And so like doing that work of figuring out how to get it in your brain that you're becoming that type of person, right? So
Yeah.
it
It's a
can go from like
curiosity, right?
I don't see myself as a swimmer to like I am becoming a swimmer, which is true. Like right, if you've joined a master's program or you joined the swim team or you decided to be a triathlete and so now you're going to the pool, you found out that the pools are open, at a certain time and you can make it there and you're still like not a really good swimmer, then what doesn't work is to lie to yourself and be like, I'm a great swimmer, like when you're not. Like that is not the way to like develop the identity because subconsciously you know that you're lying to yourself. Like when you're just saying a thing that you know is not true. So it's a matter of saying a thing in a way that rings really true to you. And so I am becoming a swimmer is potentially very true. And then you're going to take the actions that align with the person who's becoming a swimmer. And then at some point, and this might take, depending on like, the confidence levels or background or whatever, it may be that there's somebody on the outside who finally plants like the other seed for you that says like, oh, you could be way better than you are. No, I see you as a swimmer. Right. And so then when somebody says that on the outside, then like maybe at that point is when the baseline identity can change. And so I'm using swimming as an example here because that's what I'm coaching a lot right now, but it literally could go for absolutely anything, right? Like I
Right.
don't really see myself as a gym rat. Like I
Hmm.
don't see that as like my identity, which is likely a lot of the reasons why I don't prioritize going to the gym 3 days a week. Cause like I just don't see myself as a gym rat. But if like being strong is important to me, I can see myself as like a 65-year-old who's really strong. Right. And in that case, then I can be like, I'm the kind of person who cares enough about my strength to go to the gym.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
then that is
Absolutely.
something that like rings true to my identity. So yeah,
Hmm.
I think that goals and identity need to be way more in a line than that's an angle maybe that most people don't take into consideration.
Yeah, I think I totally agree. I think there's identity. I frame it around like values, which is wrapped into identity, in terms of like why do you want to do this certain thing? Why is that your goal? And does it align with what's important to you? And sometimes it is to help people identify where it's actually not. there's this, hype to, for example, be faster, podium, right? But their values right now are around career, work, and, maybe like, whatever. For example, children, right? Like having kids at a
Yeah.
young
So
age.
raising kids is a big
Yeah.
one, right? Like when the
Raising
kids are
kids is
your
a big one.
priority. Yeah, it
Yeah,
is what it
and
is.
it's like, so you have to, it's not that I say people, oh, you shouldn't have that. It's that you need to put it into its you need to have perspective, right? Of like where it belongs in the importance of the grand scheme of what you are doing and what you need to spend your time on, or what you're choosing, right? Because I mean, sometimes we don't have the choice. Like you have a 5-year-old that is sick, like that's, I mean, I guess you could take it back, like you chose to have children probably, but right, they didn't choose to get sick. You have to be there to, take care of them, whatever it might be. And same is, career ebbs and flows. Some people, take on new positions, whatever, just it has demands. And so it's not to say like you can't do what the goal is, right? Like, for example, get faster, podium, Kona qualify, right? But we have to put it we have to be rational about it, right? Like, and so I think that is where it is around identity as well, because, I mean, values and identity can shift over time. Like you're saying, like, I'm not a swimmer
For
to,
sure.
I'm
Yeah.
curious to can I be a swimmer? I am becoming a swimmer. I see a lot with runners, or, well, no, triathletes that have not mastered the run take on the identity of I'm not a good runner. And therefore that is also a negative feedback. Like they can run all they want and they can do all the run training, which actually they need to be doing some more on nutrition and race execution, but we've covered that. But if with that mindset, right, of like, I'm not a runner, as soon as things get hard in the run, then yeah, a lot of people just shut down. Like, oh, well, of course I'm expected to do this. So therefore, whatever, I will just do what I need to do to get done. Um, so yeah, so values is a big one. I did this last year with my athletes. Like, what are your goals? Of course, what were your goals for the 2024? Did you achieve
Hmm.
them? Like, how did it go overall? Give me some feedback. So I do this in a form, and then we have calls to kind of go over it. But and I said, okay, what's 25? Like, what are your goals? Like, what's your priority on these goals? And then, what are your values right now, and where are you spending your time, and what's important? And a lot of times, well, I had one that was like, I don't know what this question means. I'm confused when I asked like what their values were. And so I wasn't expecting that, I guess. But then I put myself into a normal kind of like, we're not thinking a lot of these more deep seated, like, what are your values? What are my core values right now? Right?
Hmm.
What's important right now? Where am I spending my time? And so, even though we want these be faster, PR, Kona qualified, have to accept that, how much time can we allocate to that? Can we improve our training? And sometimes that does mean like working with a coach that can help you see some, different ways of training, right? That might be beneficial to you given your circumstances. Maybe I do believe a little bit in optimization, although that word's been like completely overused, and like you can't, like sometimes you just need to do the work and you can't actually optimize anything. It's just going to take more time if you don't have as much time to allocate to the thing, right? In terms of, your time is limited and precious. So we have to be cognizant and accepting of what that means. And through work, I mean, like the big picture work of like, do we need to make a career change? Do we need to just put this off a little bit till my kids are a little bit older? Do I need to, all of that, right, is all possible. But yeah, so shaping things around values and then like the realities of people's current lives. And are there areas that we could say no to, that we could cut out? And I know no one likes to do that either, but again, time is precious, time is limited. And so if you have a lot of important things that you want to accomplish in the year, you got to put them into a prioritization list, right? And I think we've talked about this before. If you put 20 things on your prioritization list, right, or your goal list for the year, things you want to do, the experts say like you can pick the top two, maybe. Sometimes it's just the top one. And then like from 3 to like 10, you just need to like literally like remove them, like scratch them out with a Sharpie, right? Because those are the things that are going to detract you from your top goals. And then maybe the ones that are bottom of the list, like those may or may not happen. They may not detract you too much. But that was pretty eye-opening when I tried to do that for myself, of like, where am I spending my time and what's important? And yeah. So in my case, getting out to my home gym was not as important, even though I wanted to do that pull up, but we'll see. We'll see. I got to
Not
find a
that much.
different
Do you believe that you're the kind of person that should be able to do a pull up?
yeah. I mean, I know I mean I have, right? So it's not like
That was not very like,
no, it's really not. And that's been my MO, right? For a lot of my own things. Like the only thing I know for sure is that like I will prioritize time training, like not necessarily training, it's hiking with my dogs, right?
Mhm.
Like that is very important to me right now at this point in my life. I think losing my dogs, Loki and Bira, right? It's when you lose something that you love and care about deeply, like it changes you. I mean, it should change you, right? And so I have definitely shifted my priorities in my life around like these guys, and because they're here with me for a limited time, and at the end of my days when I'm on my deathbed, if I get any chance to reflect, I'll never say, oh, I wish I had spent more time doing pull-ups as opposed to hiking with my dogs, right? That being said, I value my independence. I value my strength as a, independent woman. And so to continue to have this life, I have to do some things to make sure that is possible down the road. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like a concept just came to my mind where I'm thinking about like living in alignment. And you could take that in a lot of different directions, right?
Hmm.
But like living in alignment with not only like who, like we're likely to live in alignment with who we actually are, right? Like at a
Hmm.
subconscious level. And it's because like just the way that we're going to end up acting. So like you've heard this probably a lot, like all over social media, but it's like the way that we think affects the way that we feel, and the way that we feel affects the way that we act, and the way that we act affects the things that we like our outcomes, like our actions affect our outcomes. And so if you know when you take that all the way back, then it's like, well, it goes back to like what are you thinking and believing, right? Because like the way that we think and believe affects like the rest of it downstream. And so if internally, if we never really take a time to think about that, right? Like if you never question what am I thinking about, how am I talking to myself, like what do I actually
Hmm.
believe, and you're just sort of like robotically going through your life and just living life, I don't know, we'll say the way that you think you should, then likely what's happening is that you're responding to much of what the world is putting on you. Like you're not choosing your own path, but you're just following a path that was like created for you by someone else, right? And that someone else could be like, it could be somebody in your family, it could be your parents who like taught you that like this is the path that you should go down, and you never really thought and considered that like maybe there was a different path that's better for you. It could be any person who's in a position of authority, right? Who's or the media is telling you that like this is the way you should be, and you look at like Instagram and you think this is how I should look or whatever, and so then
Hmm.
you're largely just kind of floating along doing the things that society, I don't know, has deemed are important for you. But then if you actually take a minute and go, wait a minute, what do I think is important? What aligns with what I want? And like that may or may not agree with sort of mainstream society.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
feel like as athletes, like that's pretty easy for us to accept. Like I feel like, I don't know, at least being an athlete, I don't know, am I wrong about that? Like I feel like being an athlete is not sort of like mainstream culture,
No,
not
I
in
think
not
in
in a
the
lot of societies anyway, like
right
we it ends up feeling maybe sort of mainstream for us because we end up
words.
putting ourselves like in like we find our groups of people who are doing the thing and then it feels normal. But if you really look at it in the like mainstream America is not
Yeah,
like
it's definitely not normal.
healthy
Yeah.
athlete.
Yeah, healthy. Yeah. Right.
It's just
No,
not
it's
like
not.
people will say that's what they want, but it's not actually what they want. But like when you actually take the time to sit down and think about like, who am I? What is important to me? What are my values? And like, that's what you're talking about. If you don't do that for yourself, then you're largely just living by like the values that are imposed on you, by someone else. And there may be some rub there for some people,
Hmm.
right? Or that they're thinking like, this is what society's telling me I should be this way. But like inside, I feel like I should be going a different way. And to have the courage to follow your own path requires something that maybe a lot of people don't have, which would be a degree of self confidence and a belief in yourself and like a real conviction that like this is my path, this is my way.
Right.
And then
Right.
living in alignment with that, there will be like forces that like you need to block out, or that you need to, that's not helping me live in alignment with what I'm trying to achieve. And I feel like I'm speaking in like really broad terms, which I hate doing right now, but
Well, I think a great example I have it. Well, no, not a great. I have an example, right, of an athlete that I work with that wanted to get stronger on the bike, right, wanted to get stronger overall, ski season, right, coming up, and I mean, through trial and error and through some gentle pushing on my part, right, like his like, and he the amount of alcohol he would consume the day before, the night before, key workouts, absolutely negatively impacted his workouts. And he was not drinking to excess, right? We're talking like, a couple of beers. There may be pretty strong beers, right? And this athlete's in his 60s. So, I do feel I'm not a medical, obviously, I'm not a medical professional, but, I know that as we age, it gets harder to process certain things like alcohol, sugars, right? So even though he'd been doing this for his whole life, right? It's just our in our culture, right? That action was not aligned with his goal of getting stronger on the bike and getting stronger overall for ski season. And so and it's been, some trial and error back and forth, right? Some exploration of cutting it out all out. And when he does, he has fantastic training. I mean, when he does dry months, training is across the board better. He feels better. His mental health is better. He's happier, right? It's a really clear and so I think that's what maybe it's one component, right, of like, can you actually do, what actions are you taking to improve your situation, and sometimes it's not even just doing the workout, right? It's like, are you sleeping enough? Are you, and I know we always talk about this stuff, right? The supporting mechanisms, which get increasingly more important as we get older, in our master's years. Just doing the hard sessions, that's super fun, and we can feel like we're crushing it. But if you're not doing the other things, you may not be making any progress, or smaller incremental steps, right? Than you could be, because you're not sleeping, eating, maybe you're indulging in too much alcohol, and there's other examples, right? Like even just prioritizing, planning, trying to get people to plan. When are you going to do this? How much time do you have to work out? When can you do the
mm-hmm,
sessions? When
mm-hmm.
has been a struggle? And that takes the detailed look, right, of your life. Like what, yeah,
Yeah. Have
that's
you
my
like,
two
I mean,
cents.
you just said that and it brought to mind like some experiences that I've had with athletes. Really fascinating. Um, how I feel like this is reasonably common, but like I'm wondering if you think it is too. That athletes will tell you, like if I were to say like what time do you have available to train? And they'll be like, oh, well, I can do like an hour and a half in the morning, an hour and a half in the evening
Right.
after work, like no problem, right? And like my weekends are largely free, so like I can go long, like no problem, And they act, and I'm like, oh, super, right? And so then like I'll start writing, and then they tell me they have this big goal, and like, okay, and they have tons of time, great, right? So
Great.
like I'll start
There we
writing
go.
a program, and then like they're not even close to,
Oh yeah,
and
that's
so then
very
like
common.
I'm
Yeah.
like, what is getting in the way? And they're like, well, actually, yeah, I don't have time. And then this is my favorite when they're like, I definitely need to start lifting as well, right? And I'm like, okay, I hear you, and I'm not saying that it's not important. And like, let's look at your
You
actual
got a
week
priority.
and
Yeah.
where you actually have time and to like fit it all in. And when we sit down and start like
Yeah.
plugging in, like where are the swims going to go? Like what's a basic week going to look like? And like, let's be really honest with yourself here. Like, what are you like, how hard is it for you to get up in the mornings? If you're not a morning person and you're not going to bed until midnight, which means that you're not getting up until 20 minutes before you need to be out the door, right? Then the trainer workout is not going to happen. Or, like you have little kids that, are up in the middle of the night and you know that you can't count on getting a full night's sleep. And so like planning a morning workout 5 days a week is unlikely to happen. So it's like being really realistic with
Hmm.
what you can actually do, because I feel like it's really, that's a word. It's not, it's unmotivating. It's depressing. It's a big
Yeah.
setback to have
Yeah.
a workout week planned and then know that you're not achieving it. Right. And
Yeah.
so
I agree.
like
Yeah.
once you start failing on the thing, then it's just like, it's so easy to be like, screw it. What's one more like missed workout or whatever versus, and I think that there's people who don't like the idea, and I have felt this way myself before, because you know what they'll say about how to achieve a goal. Be like, start with like really, really small steps and then give yourself
Hmm.
credit for like doing that little thing. I remember having a problem with that, thinking like that little thing isn't going to make a difference at all, right? Like, so let's
Right.
go back to the pull-up example, and let's just imagine that pull-ups are important. Like, so what you would do then is like, I'm just going to start by hanging on the bar for 15
Hmm.
seconds at a time. Every time I walk through the doorway, I'm just going to hang. I'm not even going to try to do a pull up. I'm just going to hang on the bar. I'm going to work on my grip strength. Right. And in my mind, I'm like, that's dumb. Like, that's like, it's just such a little thing. Like, how are you not really making progress? Like, you need to do more than that if you're going to make a dent in like the gap that's between where you are now and where you want to be. But what I was missing, like when I had a negative viewpoint of those like small little actions and the way they add up, what I was missing was like the mental component about how important it is to start stacking up the small wins and start following through on the things that you say you're going to do. And so if you set the goals, like the bar is low enough that it's very, very achievable, then what happens is you become the kind of person who does the thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And so when the thing is really easy and it's like, well, I'm the kind of person that hangs on the bar for 15 seconds every time I walk through that doorway. Right. And if you did that for 2 weeks, then before you knew it, you're like, oh, my grip strength is really strong. Right. So like, I'm the kind of person that does a half a pull up every time I walk through that doorway. Right. And like do that for a week. And then you're like, that was so easy. Like now I'm the kind of person that does a pull up every time I walk through that doorway. And so then it's like, those little steps, the way that they add up, what it's actually doing is rewiring your brain so that you become the kind of person who follows through and does what you said you were going to do, versus when you have these big goals and big ambitions and you think that you need to have the full plan like all in place, and I need to be working out for 15 hours a week in order for me to like do that Ironman appropriately. So let's just start there and start working out 15 hours a week. And then you get through the third day and you're like, this is not, I can't do this. Right. And then it's
Right. Yep.
like none of it is happening. And it's like, so it is so much better. That was a big, if we're looking back at like reflections on 2025 and like, what did we learn? I feel like this was a massive learning year for me in lots of ways. And that really was one of them, like changing my mind on the really small minutia goals that I
Mm-hmm.
used to just think were too stupid to even put down as a goal because it was just such a minor thing that like that little thing wasn't going to make a difference. And now I see that that little thing is making a difference in the way that a brain is wiring itself to be the kind of person who does
Hmm.
all the rest of it.
Yeah, it's
So it's like, oh, that's huge.
right. I will, yeah, I admit I am an all or nothing person. I always have been,
Hmm.
right? Like pretty rip the
Hmm.
band-aid off. And that has
Hmm.
worked a lot. I saw a lot of really positive in my life from that mindset of all or nothing. And I also fully recognize that it probably held me back in some ways too. Like if there are times in my life I could have adopted a slightly different mindset, I probably would have gotten farther in many arenas of my life, right? But big block times, big. I mean, to be totally honest, I'm struggling with it kind of right now with the same idea, which is it's really cold right now in Colorado, and I like to take my dogs out for big hikes in the mornings. So we leave, 6:30, 6:45. The sun's, I mean, it's light out, but it's still the sun's not up, and that's when that's how I like my routine to be, is to have my hike time in the morning, and then I come in and I sit down and I basically work a big block, a chunk of time, right? Like 7, 8 hours. And that's my preferred mechanism, right? In my routine. But it's so cold that we're really last couple mornings, like 20, 30 minutes outside, they're lifting their paws up, even though I'm putting paw wax on and I'm thinking about booties, right? To buy them booties. But where we go, I'm pretty sure booties are not going to work. They're going to come off. It's going to be a waste of money. So I'm trying to wrap my mind around like chunks of time, right? Of like, I get on the computer, I do 2 to 3 hours of work, and then I take them for a hike later in the day when it's a little warmer, come back, chunk it up, another 2 or 3, 4 hours of work, take them out for, we do dinner and then another, and then I come back for another couple hours of work. And that is like, that is totally like a lot of people would prefer that type of work. For me, I'm a chunk, get it done, big blocks of time. So it's needed. I have to, for their safety and for us to have our mental health and our physical health, like I got to figure out some other routine, but it's a struggle. I still struggle with this one. And so it's a little bit different than like the incremental changes, but it's the same kind of mindset, I think, of like doing a little bit now will add up. Right. And
Well, yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean,
it's
even
similar
if
and
it's
different,
like
but
I'm,
yeah.
if you don't think you're the kind of person who works in a couple hour chunks and then
Right.
goes out
And
and
then goes
like takes a
out.
break and comes back, then it's like
Yeah. Right.
opening your
It's
mind to decide that like you could be if you wanted to be,
right. And
right? And then the
yes.
answer is like, do you believe, like, would you
Yeah.
answer that question like you could be if you wanted to be? Or you say like, yeah, I could be if I wanted to be. And you go, okay, well, why don't you try it one day and just see what
Right.
happens? Right?
Well, that's
With
what
an
we're
open
gonna.
mind and just curious, and
Yeah.
go like, let's just see, and then evaluate honestly and be like, actually, that was a better way. Then you open your mind to a better way of
Right.
managing in that
And I.
scenario. And it doesn't mean
Yeah.
to stay there forever, but like,
Right, right. And I did exactly that this morning when I set out my kind of tasks and my plan for the week to my supervisor, right? And I'm like, I'm going to explore this because they're very open to flexible work hours and I don't have to be at my computer from certain times. This is the situation. It's very cold. This is not my preference, but this is what I'm going to try. We'll see how it goes. And I am open to, can I do this? My worry, and whenever you're changing routines or it's not really values, but like your mode of operation, it's like, can I be effective in the evening hours at work? Because I'm a morning person. I'm a hard morning person. Like I will get up at 4 a.m. without an alarm clock, that kind of morning person. And I start to fade, by 5 or 6 p.m. I mean, I can do work, but the hard brain work, it's a little bit more of a struggle. So I'm going to remain open. I'm going to, try to prioritize my tasks so that I can have easier tasks in the end of the day. um, so yeah, and this is very similar. I mean, you make a great point, right, about my pull-ups. I've even thought this morning when I was trying to like I got to do some strength. Like, when can I fit this in? You know, one of the other issues, right, with my house is that I have to start a fire in the morning or else my baseboards will run and they're very expensive. But my stove is not very efficient, so I need to be there to keep loading wood into the fire. So I'm like, okay, I can move my bike trainer into the living room and I can bring my dumbbells into the living room. So I can do the strength in my living room. Like, what a concept. And I don't need to do an hour and I don't need to do like hex bar deadlifts, right? Like I'm not going to bring my hex bar into the living room. These are mindset shifts that, I mean, we say, oh, just do them, but it's hard, especially if you're a routine based person that has a mindset like, you probably did in your youth and you're evolving and I'm getting there. I'm at least questioning, how can we get from point A to point B, in the context of our lives, and what we've got going
yeah.
on. So
I
it's
think
not
that
always
really
easy.
examining honestly, like what's getting in the way is a super important, like just reflection question to ask. This is like a dumb, like, I don't know, I'll call it a dumb example. Maybe it's not. It's just an example that doesn't, it's not athletic related, but more just like nutrition related, right? So I was in sort of like a mindset course of sorts where like the leader was teaching us like how to think through, like it can be for anything, but we were using nutrition like as the topic of the day. There was a whole group that was being led by, like one guy, and he was talking about like how many of you like really enjoy cooking and like preparing meals. And there were a few people that were like, I really enjoy that. Like I was not one of those. And then he was like, if you don't like love it and like it's not a priority for you, like how many of you are capable of doing it if you have to, right? And I was like, I'm in that group. Like I can do it if I have to. And then like he kept digging in a way that was really interesting. Then he was like, what makes it like more enjoyable or more doable for you, right? So because you're in this sort of like mid category where like you can do it, but you don't love it. So like what things need to be in place in order for you to want to do it? I'm like, I need to have like all the fresh ingredients need to be in my refrigerator. Right. Because like if they're not in my refrigerator, then, like obviously that's a giant barrier to like putting together a fresh meal. And so then, okay. So then the next step is like getting that fresh food into your refrigerator, right? Like, what does that take, right? It takes going to the grocery store. And like, how many people enjoy going to the grocery store? And I'm like, no, I absolutely hate going to the grocery store.
Hmm.
Right. And so like, if you look at like what is actually a barrier for me personally, as far as like getting that fresh meal on the table, it's not even necessarily preparing the meal itself. It's like the step before that of like going to the grocery store and like getting the food. And it was funny because there was another guy in the group that said, I love going to the grocery store. And I was like, what? Who loves going to the grocery store? Like, I didn't even know that was like a thing that you could. And he goes, yeah, I see it as like, I walk in and I think, oh, cool. Like, this is my opportunity to like, stock my house up with like all these fresh ingredients and the things that I like to do. And he goes, to me, it's like, I allow my imagination to run wild and like I can pick up, it just feels really good to like go to the grocery store. And he goes, when I go, I park my car in like the furthest spot from the store because I'm trying to accumulate steps. And so if I park all the way out, like it doubles that I can get my steps in and I can fill my house with like all these, good ingredients. And then what I realize is like, it's like 100% my own mindset. Like me saying I hate the grocery store is fully like my choice and like the way that I'm looking at that, because what this guy just showed me is that it's completely possible to look at going to the grocery store as an errand that you absolutely love to do, right? Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
a possibility that I honestly had
Yeah.
never even considered, that like that's something you like to do.
Right.
Because I was
Yeah.
like, I don't like doing that. But I'm like, well, what if I just
That's
decided that
wild.
I wanted to
Yeah.
like doing it? What if I looked at, instead of like, oh, it's such a pain in the butt to like stand in line and to find the parking space and to like, to all the negative things, like there's all these other people in the store that you're like bumping carts with if it's busy and, blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
Like instead of focusing on the negative aspects of all of that, like you can focus on the positive aspects. So now the crowded parking
Yeah.
lot's not an issue because I'm going to park in the furthest spot anyway to get my steps in on the way to and from the store. Right. And I'm going to look at it as an opportunity to be in the store and like smile at a stranger and like see if I can make somebody else's day, or like, there's so many ways to look at whatever scenario it is that you're doing and find a way to be positive about it so that it ends up being something that you even might sort of start to enjoy, and if you enjoy that part and now you have all the fresh ingredients in your kitchen, and it's actually not that hard to put them all together as long as you had them. Right. So I feel like we could do the same thing for like all of like
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
the training that
Many
we do
things.
or the mobility that
Yeah.
we do or whatever. It's like
Yeah.
finding a way or like really examining what is it that's getting in the way. And almost every time it's going to be the way that you view a step that's like early on in the process, right? So it's like not actually going to be like once you're in your little workout room next to your shed, you probably have no problem doing what you need to do once you're there. It's just like getting yourself like into that
Right.
room when it's cold out
Right.
is like, that's the step I got to do. And so then when you nail down that, like I don't know. I mean, maybe there's a way to make it fun. Like it's snowing outside, and you're gonna like make some cute little pattern with your feet on the way out, right? And so like you made a game
Yeah.
of it. Like, how do I get to
Right.
the steps? Like I made these cute little footprints in the snow, and every day I challenged myself to make a different pattern of what my
Hmm.
footsteps were going to be. And now all of a sudden that became an interesting thing for my brain to do. And before I knew it, I was in my shed and I have all my workout tools
Right.
available. And here I go
Right.
off like doing the thing that I know I need to do. So it's like
Absolutely.
identifying
Yeah.
what is standing in your way is the critical component to
Yeah.
doing the
Does
things that
this,
need to be
do you,
done.
yeah, I agree. I totally agree. The one thing I was thinking of though, as you were describing this, is for folks that are going to come into the new year and set goals of reduction of alcohol. Maybe it's cutting out sugar, maybe it's cravings, right? Like cravings are real, and it's actually neurochemical, it's blood sugar related. There's still a step, right? I would say from someone that's done, I actually have not ever totally cut out sugar. That's something to explore. Maybe I've cut out caffeine for a year. That was rough. Cutting out coffee for a year was maybe my saddest year that I ever had.
I've never done it. I don't want to. I know
Yeah,
that's not
it was
important
very
to me.
sad. Yeah, I don't recommend it actually. Well, I mean, if you have health reasons to cut it out, I recommend it. But it was an exploration. I'm always into exploring things, right? Like
Yeah, I like to
I
do that
cut
too.
out,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I did many dry months and we've kind of touched on this, but then I finally decided to cut out alcohol cold turkey. Not cold turkey. I mean, because I had been exploring it. I think it wasn't just like a boom, I'm done. But when I finally made the decision, it was kind of like, yep, I'm done. And I will say, like, I did not struggle as much as what I've heard some people do struggle, because I don't think it was like a, well, and there's a whole other topic of addiction versus craving versus, psychological needs for the things you want, right? Whether that's food or alcohol or sex or, gambling, shopping, right? Like these are all things that people can struggle with. And so what I was going to say with the sugar or like diet, I hate you dieting, looking at your nutrition, right? Let's say, so a lot of people will go in like, oh, I'm going to cut out cookies or sweets or whatever. I want to lose weight. So they're going to go on a diet. I'll honestly think that's always the best. Well, I don't know. I'm not going to be judgy. I'm not going to go down there. I'm not going to go down that route. But what I will say is like prioritizing the barrier sometimes is blood sugar, actually, right? Like getting low blood sugar. So trying to prioritize. So what are the steps that you need? It's like instead of going for the chips or the quote unquote things you're trying to avoid, is to have the things that you want instead lined up, right? The more protein, healthy veg, whatever that might be. For people looking to maybe cut out alcohol in the new year, I do highly recommend having some sort of substitute for like when you would normally have beer, right? Or wine or whatever it is. So tea, spritzers, right? Like the alternatives, I do think helps in the initial, because it's alcohol for a lot of people is not just it's not, they're in this gray area, which that's kind of maybe where I would have put myself. And there's even variations in the gray area, but it's routine. And so for me, it was like coming home, opening a bottle of wine,
Habits.
having, yeah, it's like, and I love to cook when I had my wine, right? Like, it was super fun, probably because I was drinking my wine, right? And so, it's a routine, right? Like you have to put something else in the place, and slowly, it was incremental, right? Like an incremental change to cutting it out. Actually, and I tried the moderation. It didn't work for me. In fact, I think I ended up drinking more when I tried to cut down in moderation, which for some people, it does work better that way because it's less, um, uh, strict, right? And like some people don't deal well with strict, and like they kind of, it's too much of a, what's the word I'm looking, like a lack, right? And they start to feel like they're being, withholding, or I don't know. But for me, that just made things worse. So for me, like, it actually was better, despite a lot of nutritionists and even like, I'd talked about this with my therapist. Like, do you think I have a problem? No, probably not. But every time I started to like try to reduce it just a little bit, it got to be worse. And so for me, I was like, okay, I'm just going to cut it out for now. And I aimed for a year, and now it's been almost 4 years, and I'm still not to the place where I want to reintroduce it. If I go to Scotland, I will have scotch. If I go to Paris, I will have wine. But like in my everyday routine, it was very easy for me to get into that routine. And so all this to say is like for cravings or for reducing things that you don't want to do, there might be some tweaks, but it does, I think, still your point of, what are the steps needed? You have to plan it out. It's, I think very rarely does white knuckling it without a plan work, both for going to doing something, to starting to doing something, or to stop doing something. So you have to have
Hmm.
a plan in place, and look at either barriers or things that you can use incrementally to adjust your routine, because for some people it's really, really strong. You're going to watch the game, you're going to have a few beers on Sunday afternoon. Well, guess what? Monday you feel like shit. And sometimes, and for my athletes that do this, you have to, then it's a conscious choice, right? Like that's, you accept it, right? Don't complain to me. We know why you feel like shit, right? Like you had too many beers. So anyways, I'm going down that. I mean, do you feel like that's true? Like when you are trying to cut things out, it's a similar process for making that
Yeah, and
change.
I have some thoughts for sure. Like as you were saying that, what was coming to my mind was that in order to keep that process going, it's likely so much more important to celebrate the small wins along the
Yeah.
way than people might think, right? So like if your goal is to be like, I'm going to go, like hypothetically, I'm going to go all of 2026 without having any alcohol. Okay, right? Like let's just say that's your goal. Then like if you're not celebrating, like when you go to bed on January 1st that you didn't have a drink today, like the chances of you making it for the whole year, right? Because it's like it's such a big goal that, you know, the whole
Hmm.
year is like so long. But if you can celebrate the small wins along the way and genuinely recognize yourself for those and not be thinking in terms of like it was only one day, so it's not that big a deal. Right. And I feel like so perfectionists do this a lot, right? So the perfectionist is going to be like, it doesn't count until I've been a whole year, you know, without having the thing, pick the thing, whatever. It could
Right.
be anything.
Yeah.
And so instead of having like this giant goal that like you're not good enough until you've achieved that giant goal, like, and whether that could be qualify for Ironman or get on the podium at a local sprint race or like whatever. The key to continuing the process is to recognize yourself all along the way and genuinely like try this. Like, and if you think it's dumb, it's even more of a reason to try it. And the idea is like celebrate every small win that you did. And again, the reason that we're doing this is a neuroscience thing where you're training your brain to look for these little things that you're doing that are good, that are like taking another little step, even if the step is 1 inch big. It's just like another step that's getting you closer to your goal. And when you can start celebrating those and recognizing yourself for doing those things, you're well on your way then to achieving the big goal in the end. And the other thing that I would say is taking the time to really reflect on like how do I feel now like after doing the thing. Like so it was interesting, there was a note that I got from an athlete who did like a really easy run and she said something like it didn't feel, her notes were along the lines of like I didn't feel like going out and doing this today. Like I felt sort of flat, like in the beginning, and I didn't really feel like doing it, but I did it anyway, right? And so I was like, great, you know, like so I'm obviously gonna like um, praise that. But then, like the next step, I wrote her back and I said, "Do you find that you tend to feel better after, like, if you're low energy?" Because I mean, this is something that, like, it's a pattern that I've noticed in my life. Like, when I'm low energy, if I can force myself to just get up off the couch and like go outside and do something easy, and it could be flow rope, it could be walking the dog, it could be a super simple jog, it could be an easy swim, like whatever, if I make myself do something easy where I just got my heart rate up to like say 120, 130, right? Held it there for 20, 30, even up to an hour, it doesn't matter. Then like I come back and afterward, I'm like, I feel refreshed. I feel better. And then once I've noticed that pattern, then next time I'm feeling flat like that and I have an easy workout on tap, then I have evidence that shows me that if I go do the thing, and again, when I'm working in terms of like future Michelle, like my future self, like in an hour, I can feel better if I just like take this first small little leap and get myself out the door, then I know I'm going to feel better after. And it was interesting because like I wrote that back to this athlete because I wanted her to do the reflection piece of that and see for herself, give herself the evidence that like
Hmm.
I felt flat and terrible, but I went and made myself run anyway. Then okay, then afterward, do you feel better? And she literally wrote back and was like, "Oh, I never thought about it. I never considered it." I'm like, okay, can you consider it now? Like
Yeah.
now is the time then to like let's start considering that. Because like what you'll find is that when you take the time to develop awareness about like what are the practices that make you feel good. And so like for your athlete that doesn't drink, when he can then make the connection between I skipped those drinks last night and my bike workout was way better, it felt really good, right? So like when you can start making those connections, and I mean, like I named my business It's Not Luck specifically because we're looking at like the connection between like the actions we take or don't take and like what comes after. Right. And so while yes, there's a little bit of luck somewhere like along the way, I get it, but like largely the results that we're achieving are simply like an accumulation of our habits and patterns that we've been doing for a really long time, and like those habits and patterns put you in the place that you are now. So it's like if you can be aware enough to start making those connections that like I don't feel good, but I know if I go out and do this walk or run, I'm going to end up feeling better after. And then to take it even further, to be like, I also know that if I push my easy runs too hard and end up doing those more moderate instead of easy, then actually I don't feel better at the end. Right. So, like the runs where I can let go of my ego and actually go easy enough, even if the pace is kind of slow, when I can let go of that and then just execute properly. And then I come home and I realize that, like, actually, I feel like quite invigorated. I feel pretty good versus when I go out and I make myself run moderate tempo and I call it easy, but I get home and I'm actually just more tired because I was in a hole and I kept digging because I pushed too hard versus I was in a hole and I did something easy and lifted myself out of it. And when you can, as an athlete, make that distinction for yourself and give yourself evidence that it's true, because I have felt it on either
Yeah.
side, then it's like,
Yeah.
that's how you can be creating these like habits in a way that help yourself. So yeah, I
Right.
would say
Yeah.
the two things are like the response to yours was like celebrate the small wins along the way and reflect so that you are aware of how the actions you take or don't take affect your future state, because like that will allow you to do the thing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I was going to pull
Anyway,
up my phone. So I'm not. I'd never taken. I'm not a fan of of logging streaks of anything, right? Like I know people want to do run streaks, and I'm just really not a fan. I did when I decided I was going to cut out alcohol for a year. I did download a tracker, and I still have it on the phone, but I guess I haven't opened it in like probably a year. So it kicked me out, and I can't actually see the number of
you can't
days.
log
But
in.
it was yeah, for that kind this it was a small win, right? Like, and I'd never done it before, and it was kind of fun. And this particular app also showed you how much money you'd saved by not because it's not like I bought cheap beer or cheap wine. Like I liked the nice stuff.
Yeah.
It was pretty shocking, like how much money I saved by not purchasing my favorites. So small wins, I totally agree, are very, very important. I guess I didn't give myself enough credit for that because I usually would say, oh, I'm not really into small wins, but I think I have used them and I just didn't even realize it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I genuinely, I think that the small wins are, because I used to be the same. Like, I'm like, that was too little to celebrate. It was too little
Hmm.
to be proud of. It was too little. And now I've changed my mind on that. And I think that it is really important to celebrate the small wins.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. We've been going on
Oh,
forever, Mickey.
yeah. We
Let's call
have.
it.
We have. All right. We will reconvene at a later time. Thanks all for listening.
Yeah. We'll see you.